Welcome to another edition of the Telecom Files, and this time I would like to talk to you about the rapidly declining value assets in the telecommunications industry. I think it goes back 5, 6, 7 years when for the first time I actually heard something along those lines, and that had to do with British Telecom. British Telecom at that point in time was looking at the assets of its telecommunications network, and outside experts came to the conclusion that that would only be a fraction of what actually the book value was of the network on BT's in BT's administration. So that really started to trigger that. Now, since that time, we've seen that many smaller telcos have, that have been up for sale, actually only fetched a very small proportion of the value that it had linked to it. For example, APT, bought by Telecom New Zealand back in the year 2000 for $1.5 billion. At the moment, they're talking about $300–400 million in trying to sell that company to another buyer. So it really shows you what's happening. Interestingly, I read the book the other day from John Steele Brown. He is the ex-Xerox chief scientist and chief innovator. And John mentioned in his book that over the last 20–30 years, the Fortune 500 value assets have declined by something like 75%, and that within the next few years you will actually start seeing declining them to zero. So that are really quite dangerous sort of signs for the telecommunications industry, of course, as well, because many of these players are amongst the largest players, at least in their own countries. So you see these assets declining, and obviously that has to do with the new economy that is arriving. We now see that the internet-based companies are growing much faster and have much simpler structures, have therefore much less lower cost structures, and they are much better suited for the digital economy, while the current telecommunications and media companies, of course, are not in that position, and they have an enormous complexity, and it's clear that customers are not going to pay for complexity anymore. It's quite amazing to see Rupert Murdoch talking about that customers will have to pay for his news. It's great for him to say so, but I don't think that there will be many users that will say, oh, of course, yeah, we will pay for it, simply because of the fact that Mr. Murdoch and many of the other media companies have enormously complex systems to produce news and television, and that of course are very costly, and therefore the cost of looking at and using services from these traditional players, of course, is many times higher than the cost of the new media companies as they are presenting their information and their services over the internet. So I don't think it's a matter of forcing customers to pay for complexity. I think it's up to these traditional companies to actually start looking at simpler business models so that they can actually participate in the digital economy, rather than trying to force, as they have been used to do so over the last 30, 40, 50 years, to actually pay for these extraordinarily high prices because of the complexity of their organization so far. So it's this complexity and the inability of these companies to actually then move to the new system. It's not the unwillingness, but the inability to make these changes. If you look at the telecommunications industry and you see the absolute spaghetti ball of systems, that makes it totally impossible for them to deliver proper operational services and billing services. And it's evident in the enormous amount of complaints that are sent to ombudsmen around the world in relation to telecommunication services. Not that these telcos are unwilling to provide a better customer service, they're simply unable to do so because of the complexity of the system. That needs to be changed, and needs to be changed rapidly, because these values are going down day by day by day. I hope you enjoyed this edition of the Telecom Files, and at the end of this clip you will find more information about our services. Also look at our blogs, free of charge information, and I'm looking forward to talk to you next time. Bye bye.